So I finished developing this really great application, and what I've noticed is every now and then I'm getting an ANR, an application not responsive, and I have no idea why that's happening. Why do you think that could occur?
So there's lots of reasons that this could happen. Mostly, from what I understand, it's Android apps typically run on one thread, and that is your UI thread. If you don't declare anything else, if you're just running all your methods from onCreate, or something like that, or calling methods from there, it's just running on one thread. And if you're running in a really intensive process, or maybe making a network call or something like that, if you don't get a different error, you could get the ANR because you're overloading on the thread.
Yeah, so your theory is that I am sitting on top of the UI thread and I'm blocking it for some reason. I'm doing something intensive. And that makes sense. And that's exactly why I would create an ANR. But it seems like my application so far is behaving properly. I don't know why it's triggering that. So what other things could occur?
It could be related to user input as well. If it's waiting for some sort of input that it doesn't get, or something like that, that could cause it as well. I do believe. And otherwise, if it's like you said, if it's just being blocked for some reason by some process, that's not going to necessarily be consistent.
Yeah, so let's say this application, I can kind of tell you more about it, it has kind of a background service. So as the user maybe it fetches content eventually in the backend, maybe it does a few things, but I still can't figure out why occasionally it's
So are we talking about like a network call, or?
Yeah, so it's doing network calls.
Okay.
And it's doing them periodically.
Okay. Are they on schedules, or does it just sort of wait for user input for those network calls, or how does it work?
Let's say when the application's open, it's doing a network call every 5 minutes or something.
Okay, so it's scheduled to run every 5 minutes. Well, I suppose that, depending on what content it's trying to pull, could be an issue. Maybe, as the app is open longer, it's pulling more content. I'm not. Depends on what you're.
Well, so I don't think it should be an issue because I developed it as a service, right? So it's doing a network call in the service.
So you're launching like an intent service that should be. Are you saying
It's
it
not
should
an
be
intent
running on the
service,
background?
it's just a normal service.
Okay. So. Well, so the idea of the service is that it should be running on the background, or in the background on a different thread. So it sounds like it could be that your doing background is maybe taking a little bit too long to run, or it's taking a significant amount of time, or a significant amount of time is going on before you call. Well, actually, are you running a broadcast receiver off of this service? So when your service is done, do you send out a broadcast?
No, I'm not doing that at all.
Are you calling like a on-task complete type thing, where once your service is done running, you call something that's that's on the UI, that's rendered on the UI thread, or runs on the UI thread?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, in the service, it's just a generic extend service. I'm doing the network call within there, and I'm starting to isolate the problem down to the service being the problem. So why do you think that could be an issue? If I do it from an intent service, everything works great. But if I do it from a service, I get an ANR.
Okay. Well, I would assume it's just because your service maybe is like directly calling that or something. It sounds like it's not running on a UI thread actually, whereas the intent service would be running, or off the UI thread. Sorry. So it sounds like the intent service would be running off the UI thread in the background, and it sounds like that's not what's happening here. It's doing some sort of intensive service.
Yeah, so what are some of the differences between, I think this comes down to a difference between an intent service and a service. And so in the intent service, it runs okay. Like I can run the network call and it's completely fine. But from the service, it's blocking. Why do you think that's different?
I'm not entirely sure because I'm not too familiar with the difference between intent service and service.
Well, so for the service, what thread does the service run on?
I'm assuming it runs on the UI thread.
Yeah, so the service runs on the UI thread, and intent service runs on
the background thread.
Some other thread executor, effectively. So that's probably where the problem's occurring, right? Because I'm running it on the service thread, and which happens to be the UI thread, and so it's blocking.
Yes. Yeah.
So.